Namaste. Today I have a young and dynamic speaker on my show. Her name is Miss Rami Niranjan Desai. She hails from Gujarat state of Bharat, and her background is such that she's the best person, or I would say, an apt speaker when it comes to talking about the northeast states of our nation and the situation in those states in all respect and on every platform, including the empowerment of women, because she has done her masters in anthropology and sociology from Religion King's College, London, and research in religious conflict and politics. And her focus or her work area was northeast states of Bharat. And she is a very popular and the most sought after speaker on various news channels. So I must say that it's my honor to welcome her on my show. My idea or intention of this show is speak to such women who have carved their own path and made a mark in the society after n number of challenges and path breaking life. Also, they have gone beyond and helped various sections of society who needed help. So Rami is one of them, and I wholeheartedly welcome her. Thank you very much for joining the show, Rami.
Thank you. Thank you, Ketkiji. And I think your introduction is far too gracious. It's actually a privilege for me to be here on such a wonderful platform. And I think it's always so great when women get together to understand women better, to understand our issues better, because if we don't do that, I don't know who else is going to. So thank you, Ketkiji, for taking out the time and spending this time with me.
Wonderful. Pleasure is all mine. So let's start the question answer. I think as being a host, I get a privilege to ask first, and then the audience can join in and they can interact with you. We have people joining in, so there is nothing difficult for them to log in. We can go ahead. So first come first. A little bit of about your background and your journey in homeland for your research. So I think you should get started.
Okay. Ketkiji, as we chatted and as when we discussed, I told you that, my area of interest has always been religion and the effect of religion on society. And I think if you were to, a lot of people are very interested in how the genesis of this interest happened, because it's a bit unusual to usually the subjects that people choose. So I think
Yes.
one of the biggest impacts on my choices was the environment that I grew up in, the environment that was provided at home. And, I emulated my parents. They were voracious readers, and we had all sorts of books at home. We had more books than furniture at home, I think, at one point. But we were always encouraged to read, and it was never as if, like, when you're younger, you're supposed to read younger people's books. No, we were allowed to read all sorts of books. And our discussions at home used to be about current affairs, about the news, about conflict and what is happening in the country. So, we grew up in an environment that was very aware of what was happening around us. And I think predominantly that happened because my parents were very interested, and because primarily they read. And I think reading is a very important part of a child's growing up, because by the time you're in college, you understand then what your interests are and what aren't. And I ended up picking up a lot of books which were on conflict, which was on insurgency, which was on religion, which was on modern religious conflict, and that was a time when you could see conflict also taking a different shape. This is the time when 9/11 happened, and security changed forever for all of us. Traveling through airports was never the same after 9/11, and religion started taking center stage. But having said that, one of the things I realized and I got very interested in was the idea of religious conversion, because even as a child I understood, when I read the books, that if you're going to convert from your religion to another religion, to me it was common sense. It had to be a spiritual experience. Something inside you should change, which tells you that no, this is the philosophy that I want to adopt. I didn't understand how that could have happened to continents, literally continents, within a span of a century, which was, let's say, Africa. So I decided when I was to go for my further studies, I decided what better than to study this, because this is really fascinating, and why would so many people convert? And I'd already started drawing parallels to what had happened in Africa, the causes and the consequences to the northeast of India, and I'll explain that in 2 minutes. But when I went to England, that's what I picked up. I picked up theology. Theology is the study of God. It has a lot to do with scriptures, and I picked
Various
up.
beliefs,
Sorry,
various
sorry.
beliefs and faith,
Yeah,
and
and beliefs, and I did a lot of Christian theology, because
yeah.
that's a religion that interested me, because, like I said, I looked at the case study of Africa. But KTG, what struck me was they actually had sub subjects to theology,
Mhm.
which was called liberation theology, which was called black theology, which were actual streams of theology, actual streams of Christian studies that were meant for new regions. So, for
Hmm.
example, when Christianity entered Africa, the philosophy that it followed was the philosophy of black theology. So there was certain strategies, certain tactics that was associated to it. For example, Jesus was portrayed as black in
Hmm.
Africa, so that he becomes more relatable
Popular.
to
Yeah.
Africans. There's in South America, there's the father of liberation theology is called a gentleman called Guterres,
Hmm.
and the reason it's called liberation theology, because there was so much of poverty in South America, that it was literally marketed as a religion that was going to liberate you from all your sufferings. And I was quite fascinated that it was so pinpointed, and I started noticing patterns between that and what was happening in the Northeast. The Northeast, which is highly tribal, very much like Africa, remote, wasn't very well developed then. I can tell you from personal experience, and I've been studying the Northeast, and I've lived there, I've done field work there, that the Northeast was a very, very remote area 10 years ago. If you go today, you won't recognize it. It's far advanced. In the last 6 years, there's been a transformation. And I think that transformation has come with a certain amount of security, that
Absolutely.
but at that time it wasn't like that, and I realized that it was right. There is a reason that in the Northeast, 100%, there are states where 100% conversion has taken place in 70 years, which is incredible. And but all these channels of conversion and all these strategies and tactics like liberation, black theology, whatever you may call it, this area was ripe for it. So then, of course, I studied it further. Long story cut short, I further went on to do anthropology of religion, which basically means comparative studies between times of religion. And I studied that very deeply. All my theses were based on drawing parallels to the northeast of India. And when I came back to India, I put that into use.
Absolutely. That was my second question, because I edited a book called Christianity in India, and that's where I happened to see as you rightly mentioned, various strategies and methodologies used across the nation to convert people, and also women have become the more soft target for I would say, giving a face or a shape to this entire strategy. And
Correct.
they are instrumental in this complete conspiracy, I would name it. And
Correct.
they have a well defined, meticulous strategy to target people. And as you rightly mentioned, Northeast states. Not so developed compared to other states, and but it's a most beautiful and scenic region of Bharat. Very pretty, and people are also very innocent, and that's what makes it more easy, I believe. And why Northeast is what my question. Why that state? Because you have conversions in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Jharkhand. So why Northeast?
When I started KPG studying the Northeast, there wasn't anybody studying the Northeast,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
it was rather bad because it is such a strategically located area. If you look at the Northeast of India, it is located. All the states are located in such a way that geostrategically it has a lot of importance, and therefore it has a lot of importance to us. Apart from that, we sort of, I felt we had forgotten our ancient Sanatan Dharma connection to the Northeast. When we talk about the Mahabharata, when we talk about characters from the Mahabharata, we are only ever talking about what happened in north of India or south of
Yeah.
India.
Yeah.
We've never associated it. There's a Parshuram Kund in Arunachal Pradesh.
Mm, mm,
Sita is supposed to be from Manipur. Rukmani is
mm,
supposed to be from Arunachal.
mm,
Dimapur is named after the Dimasa kingdom of Hidimba.
mhm.
I thought this was really sad that in a very short period of time, we
Mm.
as a society have lost our connect to, like you said, a very beautiful region, an extremely interesting bunch of people. Every state has its own character. Of course, we call it the Northeast region,
Oh,
but we don't,
yes.
but it's not really a region because every state is so distinct. Every state
Yes.
is, people are different, languages are different, culture is different, even your literature and your philosophies are different. So, in that sense, I thought it was a shame that we didn't have any of this connect. And I think for integration, it is so important to become familiar with every corner of our society. Like when I used to go there 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I'd have people tell me that, oh my God, you're going to China. And I was like, you've got to be joking. You can Google the map. And is this how our education system is, that we don't even know, where half of our states are? It was, commonly people were referred to as chinkies. It didn't make any sense to me. So for me to do research on such a abandoned geographical location of our country was very, very important as opposed to other regions.
True. Rightly said, and I think quite convincing. You also worked as a founding director for Northeast Policy Institute at Guwahati, and I'm sure that must be an experience to share. So, what was that, and what was your goal of it, or rather, how did you contribute in that field?
Yeah. So I think when I went to the Northeast, sorry, when I came back from Europe, I was very lucky to have I was very lucky to have uh, networks with many think
Mm.
tanks. In fact, think tanks was something that was not very well known at all. Think tanks, nobody knew what it meant, what they did. And so I was very lucky to get associated to a couple of think tanks. And um, uh, some of them were absolutely very enjoyable, and some of them were not so enjoyable because, as far as I'm concerned, if you're researching a area, any sort of area, any sort of topic, field work has to be primary. And if you are not on the field, if you are not speaking to people, you're not collecting first hand data, there is no point of doing research. So fortunately, I had spent almost a year in my field work in the Northeast. And at that time, I was studying the role of insurgency and religious groups specifically Christian religious
Mm-hmm.
denominations and Christian insurgency. And it was very interesting because I got to travel a lot, and this was the time when traveling wasn't very easy in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't connected. We
Mm-hmm.
had to travel, and because I was studying insurgency, I had to, I had to be safe. Um,
Right.
this wasn't the kind of area where you knew a lot of people, you understood
Yes.
the language. It was ridden with, I mean, the kind of insurgent groups that they had, the kind of every group had 20 other splinter groups.
Mm.
So it was probably the best time of my life as well, because I was very lucky to have been given that opportunity as a
Oh,
woman.
true.
Because first of all, people don't really send a woman into conflict areas to study conflict. And studying conflict means meeting insurgents, meeting,
Mm.
interviewing them. So
Yes, yes.
I felt very fortunate that I was, people entrusted me with that kind of confidence to be able to go there.
Mm.
I was also very serious about it. So,
Absolutely.
I didn't cross any limits. I wasn't over adventurous. But it taught me a lot about generally about life, because here I was, I'd studied 10 years in Europe, I'd come back, I'd gone into the most remote area in India, which,
Uh,
wasn't comfortable. I
mm.
mean, this is not about not being used to it, but
Mm-hmm.
17 hours in a bus
Mm.
with 500 people packed into it, half the time,
Mm.
hours you're standing,
Mm.
there's no food. I remember I
Mm.
came back with severe knee injuries because there was one point in 17 hours I couldn't
Mm.
even shift my leg, you
Yeah.
know. So it wasn't even you stay in really bad places,
Mm.
I'll give you a very interesting example, because you said how,
Sure.
this would have been a
Yes.
very nice experience. But I went to it was a hotspot of insurgency. And that time the hotels used to be very, very bad. So barely you had like a little chitkani, steel ka
Mm.
chitkani. So I used to carry all this luggage with me. So I used to carry my laptop on one hand, a camera on the other, and I had all my files, and I used to carry it everywhere with me.
Sure.
So I go to this hotel, I check in, and sure enough, I have a meeting. So I go out, and I come back, and I see all my documents have been gone through, and that's how insidious insurgency used to be in the Northeast, because it could be your local person who is an operative. It could be
Okay.
the staff. So yeah, it was very interesting. It was a learning experience. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Definitely. So this is something you are talking in general. Any particular episode that you would cherish entire your life? Good one, and second thing, the most challenging.
I think from the Northeast, one of it's not more like an episode, but it's more like an enlightenment way. Um, one of the first times when I went there, I went uh, I went a very, very remote place called Haflong, which used to be the hotspot of insurgency. And this was, and it was a long way away, and people used to not go there.
Which state is that?
Assam. So it's kind of upper Assam. So it's up in the hills, and it used to be such a hot spot that as you enter, there used to be like a board that used to say, "Shoot us, but with cameras." Like they started making a joke about it. So, anyways, I was there, and obviously there were no hotels or whatever. So there was one of the Vanvasi Kalyan ashrams. And there were two things that I think were fairly life changing for me. One was the principal of that school, I thought would be a local, and she was living there for 2 years, was a retired State Bank of India, employee who had come in from Pune, and
Hmm.
she was living there for the last two
Hmm.
years uh,
Hmm.
in this boarding school, um, with all these tribal children who used to come to study there, and they were also housed there all free of cost because there weren't any schools around. So that itself was impressive. But she had been living there. She was not a young lady. She must have been in her late 60s. And
Of
she
course.
had been living there. And she had given her life to just helping these children out and running the school. And really, it was fascinating for me because, we always talk about how much charity the West does.
Yes.
I think if we were to really look at India and look at how generous a lot of people are, and people who don't have a lot of money, it doesn't mean that these are people who are just writing checks. These are people who are willing to give their time. And for me, that kind of changed my perspective in life because I thought if a 60-year-old woman can come to such an insurgent ridden area, not feel scared for her life, she has
Yes.
children, she has grandchildren, she has a husband, and give her life to teaching these children. What makes us younger people so self absorbed that we can't give a few years of our life to the nation? So I think that was it changed my perspective in life. Sorry, what was
Wonderful.
the question?
Yeah. So that was a good experience. Now the other challenging one.
I think um, I really haven't had. I've been very lucky, or maybe I don't see things as challenges. I don't know.
Perfect. That's a good approach.
Yeah, I don't see them as challenges, but I think I wouldn't call it a challenge, but I think breaking barriers. So
Yes.
one of the times when I broke a barrier in my own research and studies was, I think, the first time I managed to get an interview with an insurgent, a senior insurgent, top
Mm-hmm.
of the rank, and
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get it by myself, and I managed to go and meet him by myself, and I was in this car, and I didn't know where we were meeting, and this was all very alien to me, and I remember thinking, that I hope I'm not being too over adventurous. And I hope, because I'm not quite sure how, I don't know
Yes.
him. I haven't come to a reference. How much can I push him when I interview him? I'm not sure. Second, I'm not sure where we are going because they wouldn't tell me the location. So I had all these like thoughts going on in my mind. Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Eventually, I said to myself, be sure of yourself. You're going in with the right intention to do the right thing. Do your thing, come out, don't push your boundaries.
Correct.
And I think that was challenging because you're sitting in this room with these
Yeah.
armed
Yeah.
insurgents, and the fact that they're insurgents, there is a natural deficit of trust. It's not as if you're sitting with army officers with guns. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a little bit, but they were very civil and very nice and gave me the information I needed, and we kept in touch, and but apart from that, I don't think I've ever seen anything as a challenge. I've seen it as breaking boundaries.
Boundaries. Perfect. So I would name this entire thing as courageous. I would tag it that because, as you rightly said, many of our youngsters are not having any courage or intention to do something that really shows their heroism. Rather than they indulge into something which is soft, easy, and smooth to break, and that's where they feel that they have done a great job. But where it's needed, they should invest their energy. And I also know that the point that you mentioned is absolutely very worth discussing. Western or the Christianity pours lots of money and comfort for people to complete their task. On the contrary, our people who are sacrificing their time and life for the betterment of the society do not have so much of luxury, so much of support, and also, uh, whether we like it or not, but if they are in trouble, there is a very few easy ways or a support available for them both. But people like you are there, who are taking bold steps and working on such niche areas. Let's talk about your books. You also have written books, so let's talk a little bit about that.
KTG, one of the most interesting pieces of work that I did, and this was in 2009,
Hmm.
was put out a report on a very comprehensive report on the West Pakistan refugees in Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
Um, the West Pakistan refugees were refugees who came in during the partition, and they
Mm-hmm.
came from Sialkot, and they could have gone to Punjab, they could have come to Delhi like other refugees did, but they made the blunder of believing Sheikh Abdullah's promises and
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, settled in Jammu.
Oh.
And what then happened was Sheikh Abdullah had promised them that they'd get full citizenship, but he never kept his promise. So for 70 odd years, they were living like refugees in their own country, a country that had promised them safety and security and, full human rights. And they were living without any human rights. And I wanted to go and interview the people who were eyewitnesses to Sheikh Abdullah's promises and who remembered the partition. So when I went, they were already in the 90s. So,
Hmm.
it was pretty much the last generation that I could have interviewed who are eyewitnesses. So I did a comprehensive report on why Article 370 should be abrogated, sorry, A should be abrogated, and we collected first-hand documentation from the
Yeah.
documents that were given to the refugees, the documents that the government of Jammu and Kashmir had given to them, and it was a report that I'm very proud of, and
Mm-hmm.
we accompanied that report with a documentary that you will find on YouTube. The documentary is
Mm-hmm.
called Azad Desh Ke Gulam Log. So, when you Google it, there's a movie. Apparently, there's a Hindi movie also which is called Azad Desh Ke Gulam. It's not that. It's Azad Desh Ke Gulam Log. And maybe if you Google it with my name, you'll find it on YouTube as well. And so I'm very proud of that work because when I saw Article 370 be abrogated, it was like I knew what it meant to these refugees. And mind you, these refugees were mostly Dalit, and
Mm-hmm.
women were suffering immensely because, and of course, the youth as well, And what was sad to see was this not one generation, but by now it was three generations that had resigned to living without absolutely any rights. They couldn't buy land, they couldn't buy property, they couldn't partake in any government schemes, nothing, and they didn't have citizenship. So obviously, so yeah, that was one of the earlier works that I did, which I was very happy with, and the documentary I was very happy with. It was very well received.
Yeah. Yeah.
After
Yeah. Now, no, 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 no. Sorry to interrupt. Now that we are talking about this particular topic, so how about the today's big issue, the Kupkar team and the agenda they are flaunting, and they are demanding removal of 370 uh, and misguiding or misleading the not so well knowledgeable or unknown people. For them, what is the message that you want to communicate, since you have already done research in this?
KPG, the Kupkar Alliance is made out of a bunch of people that absolutely have no relevance in this country any longer. They don't meet our aspirations. Me
Yeah.
as somebody who has probably, observed Jammu and Kashmir very closely because I've traveled there, uh, as opposed to, living in Delhi, being brought up here. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't imagine anybody would accept them in this day and age, knowing what they've done to that state. Having said that, these are the same people who wanted to be blue eyed babies of the center, when they were in power. But for their people, they wanted, separatism. So, so these are the kind of people that I don't think this nation can accept any longer. The reason that they have come together is because there is now a power that is more formidable than them, and they hate each other, but they have to
Yeah.
come together to sort of take this power on. And they know that if they don't do that in the next couple of years, they will also be removed from the imagination of the people. So I think this is completely, Gupkar is completely fraudulent. And I am very shocked that they would be even given the kind of space and importance that they are given on national television, because I think people like this don't deserve a minute of our attention because of what they've done. And the reason that they want, 370 to be brought back is
mm,
because
mm,
they are used to running their own principalities.
mm,
For them they were the Rajas, and
mm,
that's how they ran that state.
mm.
So I don't think Bukar has absolute any relevance to our lives today.
Hopefully, what you say comes true. And my sincere feeling or my uh, dil se dua ki Jammu Kashmir people have suffered royally, and now it's a time for them to get the real citizenship in real manner, and also the luxury and happiness that they deserve, a basic human right, and also the land they belong to, the place they belong to. Is it's not a refugee tag they should live with, which they have been living for long, and we know Kashmiri Pandits suffered big time, and. Uh, Poor people, I mean, destiny played its role, but now I think together we should bring them back to the,
Correct.
the peace and the beauty they deserve in their life and the happiness, which is the ultimate goal of everybody. Okay, now what is the second book?
So I did two books in the last 2 years, both of them of the Northeast. One
Hmm,
is on Rajshri Bhagya Chandra. So
okay,
again, like I said, that people are very, very unaware of our Sanatan Dharm connect to the Northeast.
yeah,
And if you look at Manipur, we know Maharana Pratap,
yeah,
we know all our North Indian heroes, right? But we somehow don't have any heroes in our imagination from the Northeast. And I think it's very, very important for us from every state in the Northeast to raise these heroes from history. And that was my ambition with this book. Is It's on Rajshri Bhagya Chandra. Rajshri Bhagya Chandra was uh, a monarch of Manipur, and he adopted Vaishnavism as a state religion. But what he did with Vaishnavism was he merged it with the indigenous culture of Sanamism. So it is so beautifully, seamlessly merged that there's been no conflict, there's no clash. Whereas if you look next door uh, to any of the states next to Manipur, where we've had proselytizing religions like Christianity come in, there's always been a massive clash with the existing indigenous cultures and Christianity. But in Manipur, when Raji Bhagyachandra adopted this religion, this did not happen, and I think that is something to write about. Also, the kind of culture that developed from the merging of these two sort of
hmm,
cultures was incredible. So, Manipur has the most beautiful form of the bhakti movement in Manipur is incredible. The music is attuned
yes,
to the bhakti movement, the literature, the philosophy, and he put all of this together and gave it state importance. So, if you go to Manipur and you go during any of these festival times, I think they celebrate it with more vigor than we do in the urban cities. So it is all owed to him. So that book was about Raji Bhagyachandra.
all right,
The next one was, an edited volume of what I like to do is I like to identify academicians
hmm,
from each state, because I think
hmm,
have state representation in all fields is very, very important. I come from North India and say, I know everything about your state, but that's not true. I can never know everything about your state. You know everything about your state. I have come to learn more. But why don't you have voices? The Northeast does not have, voices that we recognize
yes,
nationally. And why don't
yes,
we have that? So, in a very, very humble way, in a very small way, and these are not big things. I've tried to do conferences in the Northeast with
hmm,
universities there, and
wonderful.
I've tried to identify, bring in people to speak because they're also very shy, you know.
Hmm,
They're shy,
hmm,
so they don't like to come on
hmm,
stage, they don't like to
hmm,
speak. So I've
yeah,
tried to give them that confidence by, having platforms. And like I said, I have a network of think tanks that I'm associated to, and
yes.
it's been very helpful in helping me put together these conferences, for which I'm forever grateful, because I wouldn't be able to do it as an individual.
True.
Without an organization, it is very, very difficult to, work. I think when you have organizations that come from the same ideological values and backgrounds, work becomes so much more fruitful. So the second book is called Religious and Cultural Transitions in the Northeast. Basically, what I mean by religious and cultural transitions is that how in the last 100 years have things started changing with the advent of religion changing in Manipur. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I had experts from the university come in. So somebody spoke about how agriculture changed, somebody spoke about how religion changed, how culture changed. I spoke about how the Northeast, how insurgency changed the demography. So it's a compilation of that conference, and we have some brilliant minds from the Northeast who have spoken, and
Super.
it's a collaborative effort.
Wonderful. I think it was not part of my questionnaire, but now that you have mentioned it, something needs to be done on that part. You can count on me. Uh,
Thank you very much. I will take that up.
Definitely. Uh, Now, I also have a data which says that you did another wonderful activity which many people ignore, which is like empowerment or support or giving a platform to the 50% population of our nation, women, and especially the Northeast women. As you said, the entire gang itself, or I would not say gang, the population itself is a very shy community. And women, especially, are definitely more preserved and more conservative. So, to them, their handwork, their products, and their art and their culture is something which is limited or protected in their own environment, but that is also means of their earning. So giving them the platform to sell their local products was the most high point, I would say. So something about Kasvi.
So, Ketki as I've told all of you about my travel to the Northeast and
Yeah.
my work with insurgency and religion, one of the things that I noticed while I was working there is uh, one of the reasons why so much of conversion was happening, because all these proselytizing groups and uh, would go and tap on the women who had lost their husbands in
Mm.
so once a woman loses her husband in conflict, what I noticed was they were pretty much thrown out of their homes by their mother-in-laws, which was very sad,
Okay.
because
Okay.
they had, usually they have more than two children. So there's one woman with four children, has nowhere to go. And that's when these church back groups, would come in and say, look, and obviously they do it under the guise of charity, and they come and say,
Yes.
look, we put your children into boarding school, and we put your children in,
Yeah.
we'll give them education, we'll give you a salary. But my point was, and which is what I did not understand, is charity has to be done for the sake of charity.
Yes. Yes.
You shouldn't have to convert to avail somebody's.
Mm. Mm.
Then it's not charity, then it's transactional.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that to me seemed really unfair. And the only way I could see out of it is to create some sort of an income, some sort of income generation for these women, so that they can stand on their two feet. They don't have
Mm.
to, they don't have to depend on some stranger to come and tell them, look, give up your religion and here we'll give you money. Um,
Mm.
so to that end, I have a friend from your city, and
Mm.
he comes from a background of textiles, and both of us were talking about this. And I said, I'd love to do something for them, but I don't know where to start, because I'm not from an NGO background. I don't know the technicalities of all of this. So anyway, we just decided we'll do it. Even if we aren't, we'll learn from our mistakes. So we set up a small organization called Kasvi, and
Okay.
Kasvi is shining. And
Ah.
uh, I also realized that all these women, Kate KG, in the Northeast, all of them
Mm-hmm.
know how to weave. All of
Yeah.
them know how to
Yes.
create indigenous products. That could be bamboo
Absolutely.
weaving, that could be,
Yeah.
handloom, anything. And I said, considering that this artisanal goods, they have so much of value today. If you go to the West, people will pay top dollar for an artisanal
Yes.
thing.
Yes. Yes.
Why do we treat it so badly? And
Mm.
let me also tell you that the Manipuri ladies are really tough. They're almost, I wouldn't say they're matrilineal in society, but like, they're almost like uh, the drivers in their
Uh-huh.
family. So for time in memoriam, they've had a women's market, and that's a women's run for women by women market
Uh-huh.
called Uma Market, which is the only
Oh.
market of its sort and the oldest women's run market of its sort in East Asia.
Nima
And
market.
Ima.
Ima. Okay. Uh-huh.
And about 30 years ago, it used to be like this huge temporary shack. But
Mm-hmm.
now the government's made it, now it's cemented and it's a proper solid building. But it has thousands of these women who come every morning with their produce. This could be
Mm-hmm.
handlooms, basketry, even honey, or food material. Every single morning, they have their set places to sit. It's run by a community of women, and it's very organized. And they come in the morning, they go back to their villages in the evening. So I said, if they have this kind of initiative in them,
Yes.
all we need to do is just help them update themselves. So
True.
basically, what I've done via Kasvi is I have given them training on product design, because a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
products that we make today are
Mm-hmm.
not useful in the modern day. Just
Yeah.
because handicraft doesn't mean that it shouldn't be utility based. you
Yes.
know Everything should have utility.
Yeah.
So I've given them product design training. I have given them online training, because I think online markets is going to be one of the greatest avenues of
Absolutely.
for these people, because we are not going to be able to take tourists there overnight, especially now with
Very
the
true.
but at least
Yes.
if they learn how to put their products up online, they will have
Yeah.
another avenue. So these are the things that we've done with them. I have to say it's not on a very large scale, but I suppose things like this cannot be hurried up. It involves, artisans and women and, human life. Therefore, it takes time. But I'm sure with perseverance, we'll be able to help a lot more women than we have.
Definitely. I think that's the most high point for me, because that is where it makes a difference. Since the entire nation or the entire globalization is getting into digital marketing and modern marketing and many other advanced techniques of selling the produce, and also now that with initiative from our government, vocal for local, and which is a need of the hour now due to the wonderful thing that happened called corona, the global disaster. So it is the need of the hour what you are doing, and I think this is should not be limited only to northeast. It should be across the nation, wherein people should have a platform to sell their local produce, whether it is in food, whether it is in textile, and so on. That's a beautiful thing, and I must congratulate you for that initiative. This is beautiful initiative. Now let's come to the another facet or the another angle of your work, which is the most uh, highly or loudly spoken, and also the government and society is taking note of it, and they are gathering the courage to talk about this topic, the love jihad part. I think your next book is about that subject. So first of all, once again, congratulations, good luck for that book. Now let me become devil's advocate. Uh, People say government of UP and government of even Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh has already declared, and government of UP is also marching in that
Oh, yes.
direction. They are going to introduce a law about this. Uh, But there are also people, and I would not take the names, but we know the power of social media. Uh, there are people who are encouraging it, supporting it in the name that I had to fight for my behalf and get her in my life because of our two different religions. And we absolutely love each other with the proof of photographs. And they say that we are happy. What is your problem? So we never, you cannot tag everything under this that it is a love jihad. And why do you need to have a government policy for it? So now your research and your strong opinion about it.
KTG, I'm so glad you've asked this question because I think more discussion,
Mm,
knowledge sharing,
mm,
and sort of acceptance of opinion from either side is very, very important for an open debate.
yeah.
And, I think this is a topic that has absolutely no space for frivolity or conjecture. So what I mean by this is what I find, and you're rightly so when you say that social media and we have people propagating all sorts of things on social media. They are only trying to confuse us because love jihad is a very very well known problem. It's not limited to India. It's been happening for many years. It's been happening in India. It's been happening even in Europe. And every single day you'll see one article. If you read I read British newspapers since I was in college, so I'm used to it and I have it on my phone. So I read British newspapers, and every day there's a case of, what I consider love jihad, but there they call it grooming. Now, what has
Okay.
happened? What has happened in India as well is that I believe that Op India has decided to call it. They're doing a campaign on love jihad, but instead of calling it love jihad, they're calling it, I think, grooming jihad or something like that, which I think is fine because there is a heavy amount of grooming that's involved. And when you say love is a very positive word, so people tend to take it the wrong way. But when you say grooming, it means that there is conspiracy behind it. So I think this would be an acceptable alternative to using the word love. But having said that, we have to understand what is love jihad. Love
Mm,
jihad is not two people marrying each other intercaste out of their own volition.
mm,
This is not love jihad. Love
mm,
jihad is when an individual is under fraudulent circumstances
mm.
being groomed to give up their religion, take up another religion in the name of love. So I'll give you an example to illustrate what I'm trying to say. So, for example, there was a report on love jihad in Kerala many, many years ago. This is about a decade ago. One of the things that I feel that we lack in terribly is data collection. So to come across comprehensive data in India, on emerging issues is usually very, very difficult. Now it's getting a little better, but therefore, even love jihad cases, when the average person is looking at it, they're looking at it in isolation. They're not looking at it as a pattern. But about 10, 12, 14 years ago, there was a report that had come out of Kerala where the pattern had been noticed. And I'll give you an example of this two girls who were MBA students. So, they're clearly very educated and probably from educated families. And these two girls, while studying in the hostel, came across a guy called Rahul. Now, this Rahul started asking them for help and saying, "Could you help me study? And my name is Rahul. This is my friend." I don't know what his friend's name was, but it was a Hindu name. "This is my friend, and we need some help with books, and we're not very rich, and blah, 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 blah." ऐसे करते करते दोस्ती बढ़ी. एक बारी दोस्ती बढ़ी तो ट्रस्ट बढ़ा. All right. एक बारी ट्रस्ट बढ़ा so they started talking about religious affairs, and they started talking about how Islam is the right religion, and how your religion, and mind you, one girl was Hindu, one girl was Christian, so
Oh,
how your religions are, not so good. They're detrimental to women, and look what Islam says about women. over 100 books were gifted to these girls,
Hmm.
right? Over 100 books on Islam, so different books, women in Islam, and hijab in Islam, and these kind of books explaining and justifying everything and basically making their religions look bad. Anyway, also, what was noticed on another side is that all these people were getting funding from somewhere. So not big
Hmm.
funding, just say 10,000 bucks a month types,
Yeah.
and they were getting this money so that they could invest in a mobile phone, they
Hmm.
could invest in sunglasses, and they could
Yeah.
invest in motorbike. Because these three things seem to be the ideas of trapping a woman, and that they could take them for cinemas and all. So anyway, so ये पूरा चल रहा था, and eventually this guy took these two boys took these two girls home. घर में भी there was a full, a full natak that had been arranged, where the mothers, the sisters, were very loving and accepted these girls. And a lot of girls in our country are very, very gentle-hearted. They're brought up in a very protected environment. So when they see, this sort of acceptance, and people showing them so much of affection, they automatically trust them. So obviously this turned into love in no time. Sure enough, जब निकाह का टाइम आया, and these girls parents didn't know, so ये सब उनके पीठ के पीछे कर रहे थे. तो जब निकाह का टाइम आया, uh, these guys produced two other guys and said, नहीं नहीं, हम नहीं शादी कर सकते, आपको इनके साथ शादी करना पड़ेगा. And कैसे भी, uh, you know कैसे भी फुसला के या जो भी करके इन दोनों का शादी करवा दिया. These were strangers. These were not boys that these girls knew. And then these girls found out that इसका नाम राहुल नहीं था, उसका नाम let's say सौरभ नहीं था, एक का नाम शहनशाह था, एक का नाम शाहजहाँ था. So, and the story goes further that after they're married, one woman is abused, the other girl runs away. Luckily for the other girls, her parents let her back in, right? मगर बिकॉज मोबाइल फोन कांटेक्ट रहता है, ब्रेन वॉशिंग इतना इजी है that one day I think she broke down and she called up this boy, and a car came, and that is alleged was a car that was driven by PFI operatives. So you see, there we are not talking about a boy and a girl falling in love. There is a organization backing them, somebody is giving them money, they are identifying girls, lying to them about what their religion is, what their name is, and eventually, the parents, it was a very interesting case because the parents had to, there was a habeas corpus a case that was filed, one of the most unusual cases. And the court handed the girls back to the parents because ye aise chungal mein phas gayi thi. But eventually, once these girls came out of that brainwashing, they were very, very brave. They gave an interview and they said, what we went through, we would not want any woman to go through, because hamare saath to half of what has happened to other people hasn't happened with us, which is a lot of them are sold into trafficking, a lot of them are sent to places like Syria to become brides of jihadists, sold to other people. So luckily इन लड़कियों को तो हम वापस भी आए, मगर कितने घर हैं where this has happened, and these girls have been sent across borders, or have been sold into prostitution within the country, and the parents out of shame have not found it in themselves to file an FIR or investigate it or pressure, put pressure anywhere. So love jihad is, again, what I reiterate is that it is not one person falling in love with the other person, which is which is across religious lines, but it is a conspiracy where you are hiding your identity for a purpose that is not noble, that is not correct. Therefore, if this is, and why would these people on social media who are saying, oh, this is very communal, this, that, why would they want to trust these people who are lying about themselves, who are associated to suspicious organizations like PFI, and not trust victims? So I think, we have to look at love jihad very, very carefully. This is now not localized to certain areas. It is everywhere. Assam has a huge problem of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Assam में some of the remote areas में, तो
Hmm.
बेचारों के, they're tribals or they're poor people,
Yes.
their voices will never be heard. And
Yeah.
where these girls are going, we don't know.
Hmm.
And there are many, many KTG aspects to this, which is why I thought of writing something about it. I don't know if it will turn into a report or it will turn into a book. I don't know, but I think it's very important for people to understand the conspiracy of love jihad, not trivialize it by saying that, oh, um, and I say we as Hindus, we have a problem, with other communities or religions. No, this is about any woman. Now, what is happening in Europe? Europe, may it's ISIS operatives are online. They are grooming young girls as young as 14 and 16, all right, brainwashing them online, um, to come to Syria. So there is a very famous case right now. Now, उसमें conversion नहीं है, right? मगर grooming है. There's a very famous case of Shamima Begum in England, who was groomed at a very early age. She ran away from home, went to become a jihadi bride, went to Syria, eventually was married off because Syria may, all these young girls coming in, apparently how it functions is they're allotted to one jihadi each, right? So you don't have a choice or anything. They will choose this thing. So she had such a terrible life. Now with two kids, she is living in the refugee camp. The guy that she was married to is dead, or I don't know, but maybe he's still alive, I think. But obviously, there's no contact because he's probably under arrest. And she has been trying to come back to England. England has said no, we are sorry, you left this country on your own, you cannot come back, because if you, out of your own volition, even if you were brainwashed, you know but you took that decision to go and become a jihadi, I'm sorry, we can't take you back. Now, if our so-called liberal intellectuals look towards the west for all their cues, then why don't they look towards the west for this? So selective outrage, so you endless hai, but the fact of the matter is now these things are getting documented.
Hmm.
If social media is strong on one end, it's strong on the other end also.
True.
And I think voices are being heard. And
Yes.
but I also think, ATG, that just bringing in a law is not going to help.
So
you know
one thing before you share your opinion. In my personal view, two things. One is, as you said, hiding the identity and bringing the emotional drama. But other thing is, without even hiding the identity and also having the reality known, attracting or trapping a girl is one scenario. And second opinion angle of it is, um, once again, I'm still in that devil's advocate loop.
Please.
So, other let's not talk about religion. Other families or other setup also, women are targeted. They are suffering from a lot of atrocity, a lot of injustice, and they have kind of accepted that they are always secondary in the hierarchy, and they are okay with that. So why so much of fuss is second point. And third point is, um, somewhere, me being a person, a woman, if I am not firm on my decisions, on my stand, and even if I go to a shop and I want to purchase a particular brand and particular product, if I'm sure that this is what I want, no one can force me to buy something else, and no one can convince me in whatever manner that this is better than this, because as a society we need to look at it, and especially women, intellectual women should advocate this, should doctorate this, and imbibe this in our young generation's mind that you have a choice to choose your freedom. You have a free hand on your career, even on your choice of your better behalf. But that doesn't mean that under the emotional full tag, you get into a situation and what I'm sorry, but what UK is saying is correct. You have taken your own decision, and then why should we help you now? That makes definitely a sensible statement because we did not ask you to go. You are the one who went on your own. So this is the same voice I want to replicate that if you get into a situation further, God forbid, but then you cannot blame a government or a social angle that somebody should save me.
Absolutely, KTG. I agree with you completely. I think women have to be raised, young girls. We as a society have put in these ideas of what an Indian woman should be like, and every young girl is trying to fit into that idea. And I am not saying this is religious. I am on the contrary saying that this is more the way we have shown our imagery. आप कोई भी
Yes.
हिंदी पिक्चर देखो, आज आप
जी,
कोई भी टीवी में सीरियल्स देखो,
जी, जी.
मतलब शादी करना मतलब is the only ambition for a
I
woman,
know.
you know and
Yeah.
the institution of marriage is a very, very serious institution. It has to be taken very seriously. It forms a great integral part of our society and our cohesiveness, but
It's a foundation. It's the foundation of our society.
foundation, but it is not the be all and end all of everything.
Yeah.
If it is such a serious institution, then it has to be taken very seriously before you make that decision. And I think women cannot necessarily blame men for all these problems because
Huh.
लोग तो ऐसे ही रहेंगे. Where are you going to, which country are you going to find where people are just going to be amazing and nothing else? There are always going to be predatory factors in your life. And I think it is the responsibility of the parents not to judge their daughters, to allow them the freedom, to let them make their mistakes. Who hasn't made mistakes in their lives? I show me one human being who hasn't made a mistake or who doesn't regret doing something, who hasn't gone beyond what was taught to them as maybe morality or values, कितने लोग वो boundaries cross किए हैं. But you have to make these mistakes to make yourself into a stronger person. We protect our daughters to such an extent that उनको पता ही नहीं है there's something bad in the world, or somebody could take advantage of them, or somebody, there could be something like love jihad. That is why it is very important in home with daughters to be very aware about politics, to be very aware about current news, to be very aware about societal news, to be very aware about what is going on in your country. It is very important to push daughters into reading. Enough time has gone by where we've allotted certain jobs for women and certain jobs for men. It doesn't work like that anymore. And we have to also, and I, as somebody who's kind of like mid generation now, um, I sometimes wonder that मेरे parents के time में एक values थे, principles थे, उनके parents के time में some values and principles. हमारे values and principles क्या हैं अब? Where have we, we have to adapt our values and principles as time goes on. We are not still, you cannot use something that was maybe used 100 years ago, just say, or 200 years ago. You have to give up some things, adopt some new things. Where is this generation adapting anything? So I think there are two or three parameters here. One is the parents' responsibility. You produced a daughter. Your job is not just to get her married off. Your job is actually to make sure that she financially secures herself first, because nowadays there is no guarantee of marriages. Number two, the daughter's responsibility, you know, that, we have to be smarter than this. If our parents are trusting us to go to another city and do an MBA, what is it that we need to give back? Plus the relationship between parents and daughters. A lot of times what we've noticed is love jihad ke cases may, or even in other cases, it always becomes a thing about family shame and societal shame, and हम लड़की को वापस एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे। अरे
Hmm.
आप नहीं करोगे तो कौन करेगा? किसकी
Hmm.
बेटी है?
Hmm.
You know, and a child should never, any human being should never feel in their lives that they have nobody to go to.
Yeah.
You know, क्यों क्यों वो किसी संस्था जाए जब उसके खुद के माँ बाप है?
Hmm.
You know, so I think society has to broaden their minds, understand that we cannot have these high levels of expectations from other people but not from ourselves, you know. But
True.
parents have to change, daughters have to change, and we have to be educated enough in our own scriptures, in our own religion, so that if somebody tries to challenge
Yeah.
our beliefs, we can hit back.
Counter.
हमा
Yeah.
हमारी रिलीजियस एजुकेशन क्या है आज? जितना मैंने पढ़ा है, मैंने खुद ही पढ़ा है।
True.
बिकॉज़ एन एवरेज अर्बन पर्सन डज़न्ट नो वेयर टू गो, कहाँ सीखे,
Yeah.
कहाँ जाए? टाइम नहीं है, Um, but we have to have solid understanding of our own religion to be able to defend ourselves from these challenges that we are going to face more and more.
True. I think that's all I had, and it was wonderful having you here, and also the topics that we touch upon are enriching, are essential, and now it's a time for younger generation to get into social aspects and
Absolutely.
have awareness and education on every parameter of life, and also uh, in the name of freedom, please do not adapt something convenient to your lifestyle and then or the one which is difficult for you. Because last week I had a session with Dr. Kalpana Acharya from Delhi, and she is into Veda Upanishad Acharya ship, and that's where we also said that Sanskrit is difficult language for me to learn, and it's a difficult mm, curriculum which I don't want to adapt. So what I do, I go for the English version. I go for the English movie. I go for the various light and superficial discussions, and that's what I call it knowledge. And that's what becomes my foundation for my life, and that's how I live. And then that's where it's easy for someone to tap on me very easily and make me um, fall into a trap very easily. And that is where the problem is. And I think last word, Rami, how our women should stand on their feet and also not only financially but emotionally become strong.
Wow, that's a really big question, Ketkiji. You saved the you saved the best for last. I think I think women have to understand. It's very, very important for women to understand that they can do everything. They have the resilience. We probably have more resilience. And I'll tell you, I think Indian women have even more resilience. I hate to be comparing, but I do find because Indian women take on so much of responsibility, that their resilience is in comparison far greater to other women in other countries, where things are far more shared with the men in the house. But I think Indian women also have a long way to go because they don't, they seem to resist breaking what they consider our
Hmm,
boundaries,
hmm,
you know कि
yeah,
हमने बहुत पढ़ाई की, हम क्लास में फर्स्ट आए, हम कॉलेज गए, हम सीए बन गए, मगर हमारी शादी हो गई तो हमने काम करना बंद कर दिया. नाउ देयर आर एथिकल इश्यूज टू दिस कीजिए, इज
yeah,
दैट अगर आप काम करना बंद कर दोगे, एंड आई एम नॉट सेइंग
so,
यू शुड हैव अ 9 to 5 जॉब, व्हाटएवर यू एंजॉय
yeah,
डूइंग,
yeah, yeah,
what are you what is your contribution to showing your children what all they can achieve, if you yourself don't put it in practice, number one. Number two is that the GDP of the country is losing out a lot with our women not working. If women started working in full force, our economy would be richer. because we would have that many talented, educated hands at work. And what has also been noticed and statistically noticed is that as Indians become richer, the less they want to work. So the women stop working. It's considered as a not a very elite thing to do.
Yeah, below dignity.
Yeah, it's below dignity.
Yeah,
We are very
yeah.
comfortable financially. Why should the women in our house have to work? It's not about the money. It's about utilizing your brain to the fullest of the capacity that God has given you. Why would you want to numb yourself down? It is for the fact that you want to be a great example to your children of, how important it is to work hard, in a country like this, where all you have to do is look outside your window and you'll see somebody who, is who doesn't have the same opportunities as you do. So if you're educated, consider it as a blessing, consider it as an opportunity, make the most of it. It will give you confidence, it will give you the ability to live your life on your own terms. And why would you not want to do that? Why would we feel threatened by somebody using a god-given gift to its full potential? So I would say to women in this generation is that this is not about finances, this is about utilizing yourself, and you must do that for the sake of society.
And have an identity of your own. It could be
Absolutely.
anything.
Could be
And it's,
anything. It doesn't have to be, you
yes,
don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a police
yes,
officer.
yes,
You could be a home cook.
absolutely. And I think to add to this, it's not always a equation of success is equal to money. It can be something that satisfies you, that keeps you busy with creativity and constructive thought, and that makes
Absolutely.
you more strong and confident.
Absolutely. And then, automatically all these, predatory forces will not be able to attack us.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay, so I think that's all I had, and it was enriching and interesting and really wonderful to interact with you and hear your opinion and your experiences about your work, about your research, and also the empowerment initiatives you have taken. So, wish you all the good luck and thank you for your time and your entire discussion and the piece of advice that you shared with the young generation. So, dhanyawad.
Ketki ji, thank you so much. It was a privilege for me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.